These dogs, they are unstoppable. I have to say, watching the magic happen and unfold, it's life-changing, really. I mean, there are amazing things that I have seen over the years of what animals are capable of doing that sometimes even doctors and nurses can't get to happen. Dream Fetcher started in 2005 officially, and that really is my passion. I'm very passionate about helping dogs with disabilities because they are overlooked so often. I mean, I think there is people more now are starting to see the beauty of a disabled dog, and people are starting to adopt them, but it takes a special person. So let me tell you about each one of my unstoppable dogs. We have Petey, and Petey's from Mexico. We have Zeke, and he's from the island of Curacao. We have Eddie, and Eddie is from California. We have little Bunny Pop, or I like to call her Sydney, actually. We have Elliot, and Elliot is from Egypt. And Pop is originally from Tijuana, Mexico. Now, all of these dogs, except for little Sydney, are survivors of abuse, and they vary in the different forms. Sydney, the little French bulldog, she's a product of just overbreeding, but she has 4 deformed paws. So each dog, we have dogs that are in wheelchairs that have spinal injuries. Zeke and Elliot are missing Zeke is missing his back limbs, and Elliot is missing all 4. So, like I said, they vary in degree, but they are all now living their best lives, and they are the ambassadors to my nonprofit organization, Dream Fetchers. So when each dog comes into my organization, usually I'm picking dogs that I know are going to fit into my outreach programs, because I ask a lot of questions and I do a lot of, probing before I bring in any dog to make sure that I think it's a good fit, because a lot of these dogs I'm not able to meet in person because some of them have come from other countries. So I can only pick the dog from talking to the actual rescuers, talking to the fosters. So then when they come, I do a lot of work with them one-on-one, and I get them ready to participate in the program. So there's a lot of training involved and prep work before they start doing anything, but I carefully screen everybody to make sure that they're a good fit. And so far, I've been pretty good. We were at a hospital years ago. Now, it wasn't with these particular dogs, it was some other therapy dogs that I was using. And we were visiting children in the hospital. We were going room to room. And I remember coming into one room and the nurses said, I just want you to know that this little boy, he's not going to open his eyes. No, we don't ask why. It's just whatever it is, it is. But they just kind of gave me a little heads up that he's probably going to be, he's not going to open his eyes. His eyes are closed. Okay. So we went over, he was sitting in a chair by the window, and I brought over each dog and I was talking to him, and I told him, I said, here's the first dog. And I took his hand and I let him feel the dog. And I told him what the dog's name was and a little bit about the dog. And I just remember watching it because I was sitting on the floor below him. He was looking down anyway, but he opened his eyes as wide as they could go, looked at the dog, and then closed them real fast. And I didn't say anything. Everybody just looked. I looked around and you could just see everybody was looking like, oh my gosh, did we just see that happen? And each dog that I brought to him, he did the exact same thing. He opened his eyes as wide as they could go, looked at the dog, and then closed them real quick. And when we were finished with our visit in his room, we walked out. The nurses told me that nobody could get him to open his eyes. Not the nurses, not the doctors, not his parents. But the dogs got him to open his eyes, each dog. So how each dog performs their own therapy. I mean, dogs are therapeutic just to begin with. We call it the human-animal bond. It's very strong. It's very strong, a very powerful thing. Each one of them has their own unique way, I think, because that's their personality. Like Zeke, he's very loving, and he will put his head in their lap, or he will rest his head on their arm. That's something he just does naturally. I didn't train him to do that. That's him. That's his unique way of getting love. Other dogs will just stand there and get love. Other dogs will want to do little kisses and put their feet up. It just depends on the size, of each thing. So, yeah, they kind of do their own thing because they each have their own personalities. So, a little backstory on myself as I train animals for the motion picture industry. So, I have a movie company that I've had since 1995 called Pause for Effect. So, we had done a movie years ago, but I was invited to an event because the dog was the star of this Disney movie. I was invited to an event that was put on to raise money for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. They wanted me to bring the dog there because the dog obviously was just in a Disney movie and it was the star, and they thought that would be a great draw for people to come into the event to see this dog, which of course he was. And that was my very first experience ever doing this kind of work, because when I went to Memphis, we went to the Ronald McDonald House, we went to the Target House, and we actually went to the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And I brought the dog. I had never, ever done anything like this before. I hadn't even had a nonprofit yet. But when I saw the power all those years ago that this dog had over those children, it was like I had an epiphany, and I knew that this is what I was meant to do. And, fast forward all these years now later, the journey has always been the same, but the way the journey now is going, it is changed now with me using these dogs with disabilities to do the same work, because I feel the power is so great. It's just, the power of animals is so strong. I don't even know if people really realize how powerful it is. I mean, these dogs have just literally brought people to tears just by not even saying a word. They just do it all on their own. I can't really describe it. I just watch it happen. But usually it's because somebody needs something. Somebody needs something and they're getting it from these dogs. And I just, like I said, I always let it happen organically, and it just normally does and unfolds in a beautiful way. I think the way these dogs have changed my life, they've definitely made me a more compassionate person. And I think they've made me look beyond what an individual may have or be going through, like to look deeper into every situation, because you never know what somebody's going through.
When we paddle out into the lineup, people smile. There's no doubt, and we'll take off on a wave, and I hear people going, "Rosie, go, Rosie." It's pretty cool. There's actually quite a few people who surf with their dogs, and then we have these competitions where they surf on their own, and they're